We're joined now by Jeremy Hunt, British Chancellor of the Exchequer. Chancellor, thank you so much for joining us. When you look at what's going on in Ukraine and the concerns from U.S. legislatures, I wanted to know from you, as I'm experiencing with some conversations in New York alongside the UN General Assembly, this idea of war fatigue. Are you seeing that in the United Kingdom as well?
We're not, but what I would say to our friends in America is we are incredibly grateful for the global leadership that the United States has shown when it comes to the Ukraine conflict. And I don't think there's a choice, either we focus on Ukraine or we focus on China. The truth is that when you have an aggressor who does something completely unacceptable, tries to tear up international borders, if you're weak when that happens, then you are making the likelihood of conflicts in other parts of the world even higher. And so that's why I think the more the international community stands together when it comes to Ukraine, the less likely we'll have problems elsewhere.
Chancellor, next month the UK will be leading the first global summit on AI. In November, it's going to be happening. We're talking about artificial intelligence just about every day here in Washington. I wonder who's going to be attending the summit. Will China have a seat at the table?
We'll invite them. They won't come to all the discussions, but you need to have a dialogue with countries like China. They're not going to go away. And there may be things that we can work together with China on. But, we have to be very realistic and we have to have those discussions with our eyes open. What we're trying to see is if we can get a global consensus on how to make sure that artificial intelligence remains a massive force for good in the world, which I truly believe it can be. But then if you're going to do that, where you put the guardrails in to stop it going wrong. And the UK has just become the third trillion-dollar tech economy globally. We have more unicorns, these billion-dollar companies than anywhere else in Europe. So we are very keen to bring together all our friends and indeed people whose values we don't share to try and manage this next huge development in humanity's tech journey.
I used to walk by the Silicon Roundabout a lot, but right now you're actually dealing with the titans of Silicon Valley in California. Have you convinced any of them to come to this summit in the United Kingdom?
I think we're going to get most of them coming. You're absolutely right. Well, actually, he's someone I haven't spoken to, but he'd be very, very welcome. But I just say this, we are Europe's Silicon Valley now. Since you lived in London, Annmarie, there's been a huge tech explosion. And, we are really proud to be able to make a good contribution to this debate. It's much better that we try and grip this right from the outset. And I think, from the point of view of investment going forward, investors want to see that governments have figured all this stuff out. And then when they do, they're going to start to put in really huge sums of the money. At the moment, we're getting a lot of money being spent by the really big players. And we've got quite a few startups. But if we're really going to make this the huge opportunity it can be, then we need to get some kind of consensus about how to keep it safe.
Last question, Chancellor. The UK kept rates unchanged today. Is that the end of what seemed to be an endless cycle of hikes?
Well, just like the US, these things are decided independently. I hope it is. But obviously I have to leave it to the experts in the Bank of England to make the final decision. But I think both in the UK and the US, what you can see is that if you take corrective action and if you stay the course, you can get inflation down. And in both our countries, it's definitely peaked. But it's just so painful getting inflation out of your system. And I think the lesson here is we've just got to stick at it, and then we can get back to the decent growth levels that we all want.
Higher for longer. Jeremy Hunt, British Chancellor of the Exchequer, we thank you for joining us today.